Today on an all-new Dr. Phil, a social media prank with deadly consequences.
The girl who allegedly pranked him has been charged with malicious use of a telecommunication device.
I found him in his closet. He was so young, he was only 11.
The exclusive details.
Did you have any inkling that there was something amiss in their relationship?
No, not at all.
The shocking interview.
It was horrible to see a little child who was so innocent and had the brightest future have to let him go was horrific.
The show every parent should see.
Do you think she had any concept in her mind that this would be the outcome?
I actually do feel that it was intentional. The next day she went to school as everything was normal.
Do you think this girl actually wanted Tyson to kill himself? Netflix's controversial and binge-worthy series, 13 Reasons Why, has sparked a national conversation about bullying and been criticized as glorifying teen suicide. The teen high school drama centers around a young woman who takes her life after being teased, embarrassed, and relentlessly tormented by classmates in and out of school.
Hey, it's Hannah. Hannah Baker. Settle in, because I'm about to tell you the story of my life. More specifically, why my life ended. And if you're listening to this tape, you're one of the reasons why.
Whatever your opinion about the show, it is important to know that amongst young people ages 10 to 24, suicide is the third leading cause of death, according to the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Now, 13 Reasons Why is just fiction. But on today's show, we'll take a look at the real-life tragedy of a young boy who took his own life after what has been characterized as an online prank that went terribly wrong. Or could it have been something far more sinister? Either way, it was a national news story that shocked and broke hearts across the nation. 11-year-old boy hangs himself after social media prank.
Imagine being just 11 years old and seeing a social media post saying that your friend, a girlfriend, had committed suicide.
On March 14th, 11-year-old Tyson Benz attempted to take his own life after what some are calling a social media prank gone wrong.
Authorities say the posts Tyson Benz saw were a prank, but the 11-year-old believed it. Moments after seeing the messages, his mother says Tyson hung himself in his bedroom.
The Marquette Police Department investigation found Benz was engaged in communication with another juvenile via social media prior to the incident.
The girl who allegedly pranked him has been charged with malicious use of a telecommunication device and using a computer to commit a crime.
The death of an 11-year-old Marquette boy now has his mother asking families to talk about cyberbullying dangers.
I definitely think justice needs to be served, and she needs to get the highest punishment that she can for what she has done to my son.
Tyson's mom believes the girl should be punished to the fullest extent of the law.
Katrina says her 11-year-old son Tyson was a typical preteen boy. He was athletic, a good student, had lots of friends, and was liked by everyone. So what happened? How did what is being called a cruel teen joke spiral so out of control? Today, in an exclusive interview, Tyson's mother tells her story about what she says happened that night, her interactions with others, and why she says she believes her son ended his own life, and the tragic aftermath. Trina?
Hi, how are you?
Dr. Phil.
Nice to meet you.
I'm glad to meet you. I can't even begin to tell you how sorry I am for the reason we're meeting. One thing you will not hear me say today is I know how you feel. I cannot even imagine what you're going through. You have 3 boys, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And Tyson is where in the birth order?
He was the middle son.
He was the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So you had 10, 11, and 14, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Tell me how this happened.
My son met an older girl who was 13 I'm assuming originally through school, through some mutual friends, and they were all friends.
Tyson was in what grade?
Tyson was in 6th.
And she was in
8th. They kind of secretly started dating. He wasn't allowed to date. All of my boys aren't allowed to date. They're all too young. And he was aware of it. He knew, and so that's why it was secretive. Then he obtained a cell phone, and again, he wasn't supposed to have a cell phone. He actually purchased it with his own money, and I was opposed to that, obviously.
But you knew he had the phone, right? You let him keep it once he had it?
I did let him keep it, and the main reason was because he was extremely social, so he always wanted to contact his friends, text them to make plans to go out and about. So that was kind of the only reason I let him keep it.
Did you talk to him about that, about going behind your back and getting the phone? And did y'all have a conversation about that?
Yes, and I told him I was opposed to it, but then I said, well, and then I could get a hold of him as well. So I was like, well, you can have it just to be able to reach your friends, and get a hold of me, but you're not supposed to converse with the young girl.
So you didn't want to have it, but you let him keep it so you get in touch with him, and it has pros and cons, right? But you didn't know about this girl at all.
I didn't know about her. I knew that they would be at the same places together and such, but I didn't think she was his girlfriend. I mean, I didn't.
Right. Well, he's 6th grade.
Right.
You wouldn't think that. So were you able to monitor who he was speaking with or talking to?
Not really. I didn't really. Well, he had a code on it, but I mean, I didn't really. I should have monitored it better. I would take it away when he was naughty, or when I thought he had it for too long and such. Or at nighttime, I would take it away usually. But so, yeah.
You say you should have. Who knows? You can't second guess yourself in that regard. There's no way you can foresee something like this coming. So, and I don't know that I would say you should have or shouldn't have if you had asked me back then, because on the one sense, he's a good student, he's a good athlete, he's involved in the family, gets along with his brothers. So he had not shown really irresponsible behavior. So there weren't a lot of cues that say I need to crack the code and get in here and see what he's doing.
Yes.
So I don't know that I would have told you a lot different at that point. Okay, so you knew there was a girl out there, but it was just kind of fuzzy. You didn't know her. She hadn't been to the house. You hadn't met her.
Right.
Or whatever. Okay, then what happens?
So then, different instances where I knew he kind of would sneak out and, I have to go run and meet my friends, and are you sure? And when really he would be meeting her, and I didn't know, and then he would go down and skate with his brother at the outdoor rink, and then her and her friend would be there when I went to get him, and I'm like, so it just kind of, it was, again, really secretive, and I didn't know the extent of it, I guess.
And what was the extent of it?
Well, I mean, that they called each other boyfriend and girlfriend, and I guess all the kids said that.
But dating at that point is kind of what you described. They show up at the same place sometimes, they cross paths, they talk on the phone or now text. It wasn't like they were dating like older kids do. They both show up at the rink or the movie or something like that and just prearrange run into each other. That's dating in middle school, right?
Yeah.
Why did he not tell you about that, do you think?
Because he knew I didn't approve.
Okay.
Yeah.
He knew you wouldn't like him singling out a girl?
Yeah.
Would it have been okay if it was one girl this time, another girl another time?
No, because I don't allow my boys to date. They're all too young.
Too early for girls?
Yeah.
What did you know about her?
I don't know her. I don't know the family.
So she was kind of an unknown?
Yeah.
Okay. 2 years grades difference is pretty significant, although he was a good athlete. I mean, there were a lot of things about him that made him stick out, stand out, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
I guess months went on, and I think I just kind of sensed, or I knew that he was talking to her secretly in his room with his phone, and maybe Snapchatting or whatever, texting, FaceTiming. And I can't recall what the final instance was, but I ended up messaging her on Facebook and telling her that he's not allowed to date, he's too young, and they can be friends. I started off being really nice, and then I had to do further messages telling her, do I need to speak to your parents or your guardian? I already asked you, because she just kept kind of ignoring my requests. And then it did get to the point where I had to contact the parents and the guardian, and they acted like they had no idea, and nothing happened. And again, like I said, this is over several months.
Right. Did he admit she was his girlfriend at any point?
No. Mm-mm.
Did you confront him about it?
Mm-hmm.
Did his behavior change after he met her?
Yeah, actually, my mother and I both think that it did. He just seemed kind of distant, didn't seem as happy-go-lucky as he normally was. He still did all of his things, all his sports, and was with all his friends and everything, but he just seemed kind of not very happy, just kind of sad in general.
But as far as meeting her, he would just give you a misdirection. He would say, I'm going to skate with my brother or whatever, but did his older brother tell you anything about it?
I mean, no, because when I went there, I saw them there.
Yeah, you had your own intel.
Yeah.
Okay, so this goes on for how many months do you think?
I think it was like about 6 months time, yeah.
Okay, and during that time, he's kind of doing this on the QT, giving you misdirection. Did you have any inkling that there was something amiss in their relationship at some point? Were they, like they were breaking up, or there was a fuss or a fight or something?
No.
Nothing?
No, not
you
at
didn't
all.
read him different in any way?
No.
So you've talked to her, you messaged her, you've talked to the parents. It keeps going on, and did you think about taking the phone away completely?
Yes, I actually did several times. I would take it away, and then he would say, oh, well, can I have it? Because I need to get a hold of my friends. And I'm like, well, okay, yeah. And then I need to get in touch with you as well after school and such, so.
When you went to her Facebook page, what kind of girl did she seem to be?
She doesn't have a really elaborate one. I don't know if kids really do in general, but it was just pictures of her and her friends, and there was nothing that stood out that was odd or anything.
Yeah, just one of the girls.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the night. Take me through the last day of his life.
Coming up.
That moment, as painful as it is, you turn and you see him in the closet. At that point, he had hanged himself.
We now return to a Dr. Phil exclusive.
So let's talk about the night. Take me through the last day of his life.
Mm-hmm. So he went to school, regular day, everything was fine. He actually went to tutoring, which I usually have to remind him, but he was all proud because he went on his own, and so he got a little reward. We went and got a little snack after school. We went home, just did our normal routine at our house. He and I went to the grocery. We actually bought brownies as a special thing. He and I made brownies together. He seemed fine. He was all happy. And then we had dinner and everything, and just an absolutely regular night. He was bopping up and down from his room. I just assumed he was, on his TV or doing whatever, playing in his room. His brothers were in their rooms also, which are all upstairs. And then probably about, I think it was like 9:40, he bopped down, and I just said hi, and everything, and I think he got a snack. Then he went back upstairs. Well, then I went to tuck my boys in. It was probably about 10:05 or so. And then I usually tuck the little one in first. And so I got him all set, and then I went to my middle son's room, and the door was locked, which they usually do that because he locks out his older brother so it doesn't bother him, and that wasn't really unusual. So I unlocked his door, and then I looked around, and I was calling for him, and I thought he was just
like just being silly and hiding on me, and I was calling for him, and then I looked in his closet, and I found him.
Take me through that moment, as painful as it is. You turn and you see him in the closet. At that point,
Thank you.
He had hanged himself, correct?
Yes.
And how did he do that? How did he even know how to do that?
I don't know how he would know how to do that at all, unless he saw it on the internet or something. I don't know, or if somebody told him how. But he used a belt
Mm-hmm.
Now, his older brother called 911, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How long did it take from the call to 911 for the paramedics to arrive? I'm sure it felt like a year.
Yeah, it's hard to say because it was so much commotion, but I mean, maybe like 10 minutes or 8 to 10 minutes, I'm not sure.
And what were you and your oldest son doing during that time?
Well, I was trying to administer CPR, and he was trying to relay everything with the 911.
Staying on the line?
Yes, and then my little one was trying to watch and look out the window to see if they were coming, and he unlocked the doors and everything, so.
When and why did the police get involved?
They came right with the paramedics. I don't know if that's just standard, or I'm not sure why they came with.
Okay, so this happens. You go in there and find this. I'm astounded that in the state of shock that you were in, that you were able to be, frankly, so heroic in doing CPR and getting 911 and keeping everything well done, you, in terms of doing everything as you could do. But at this point, you have no idea why this has happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, timeline, and this is so important to me for you to acknowledge. You pick him up, he's gone to tutoring, he's reminded himself. You go to the grocery, you're spending quality time with him, you're making brownies. 9:40, he's bopping down to the kitchen, as you call it, and I know what that means, having raised two boys, 3 steps at a time. They're coming down and then boom, 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 back up. And 20 to 25 minutes later, you find him in his closet. So he goes, it showed no signs of depression.
No.
No signs of upset.
No.
Something radical, dramatic, poignant for him happened in that 20-minute period. What was it?
Coming up.
Do you think she had any concept in her mind that this would be the outcome?
I actually do feel that it was intentional.
What do you base that on?
We now return to Dr. Phil's exclusive interview.
On March 14th, 11-year-old Tyson Benz attempted to take his own life after what some are calling a social media prank gone wrong. Tyson's mother says he attempted suicide after being told a lie that a 13-year-old female friend had killed herself. Tyson died on April 4th from his injuries, and that girl has since been charged with malicious use of a telecommunication device and using a computer to commit a crime.
Something radical, dramatic, poignant for him happened in that 20-minute period. What was it?
Well, he had been texting back and forth with the 13-year-old girl, and she had pulled a big prank on him and told him she killed herself. And she reiterated, like she confirmed it by using a friend's account to pretend she was the friend, like she was saying she was the friend, and she said that the girl had killed herself. So for Tyson, he thought that, he heard it from her and then he heard it from the friend, so he thought it was for sure.
So he heard it from her in her saying that she was going to do it?
Yes.
And then a friend saying, oh my God, she did it.
Yes.
So we have an 11-year-old here that you think has gotten ahead of himself relationship-wise, emotionally, maybe more intertwined than he was maturationally ready for.
Mm-hmm.
And you think he just reactively did this.
Yes.
Did she say why she was going to kill herself in this prank she was playing?
I don't know the detail of the text because the authorities have the phone and that, but I do know that that's what had transpired.
Did she have a chance to say this was all a joke, but didn't? I mean, after she says this to him, I'm going to do this. Then as a friend says, oh my God, she did it. But there was no message that Tyson didn't see that said, oh, by the way, this is all a joke. There was no follow-up message that you know of.
Yeah, I don't think she did say it was a joke or anything. I don't think she tried to quickly, like I said, she didn't try to reach out to me. She didn't tell another adult.
Did Tyson tell her he was going to kill himself? Do you know that?
He either said, I'm going to hurt myself or I'm going to kill myself. I don't have the text, so I don't know the exact
And she
wording.
didn't respond to that so far as you know?
No, I don't know.
When did you find out that this exchange had taken place?
I found out the next day from the detective.
And did you know how they found out?
They went to interview her, and they had his phone.
I see. So they had his phone.
Yeah.
And could see what had...
I think, well, it has the lock feature, but I think you can see who they've been conversing with or something.
Do you think she had any concept in her mind that this would be the outcome?
You know, I actually do feel that it was intentional, just from things I've gathered and information. But I do feel that that was her intention.
And what do you base that on?
I mean, right after, she didn't message me, she didn't contact me in any way, she didn't tell another adult. The next day, she went to school as everything was normal. From what I've heard from fellow students, she was just going along like nothing happened.
But she didn't know that...
Well, she did contact a boy who lives behind us, and he said, yeah, there's a bunch of emergency service vehicles and all this, but, you know, at the home. So she did know.
So she went to school the next day knowing that after what she messaged, there were emergency vehicles at his house.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you think this girl actually wanted Tyson to kill himself?
Coming up.
They found a pulse. They had him on life support. Did he ever regain consciousness?
Plus, the moment Tyson's mother faced her toughest decision.
It was the hardest choice that I would ever have to make.
Closed captioning provided by...
Now return to a Dr. Phil exclusive.
This 11-year-old boy killed himself after believing his teenage girlfriend had died, allegedly falling victim to a cruel internet prank that nearly mimics the story of Romeo and Juliet. Tyson Benz from Michigan loved performing stunts in the water. But his family says it was a stunt on social media that caused his death.
So you think this girl actually wanted Tyson to kill himself?
I feel that way, yeah.
Which is why you categorize this as cyberbullying instead of just a prank gone wrong.
Yes, absolutely.
You think this was a purposeful hurt him in some way?
Absolutely.
I'm so sorry that this happened. So, of course, there were emergency vehicles there. You did get him to Children's Hospital. They did everything they could, right? Did he leave any kind of note, message, text, anything to you, his brothers, anyone?
No, he didn't leave anything, no.
So this was likely very much impulse.
Yes.
How long was he at Children's? They did move him at one point, is that right?
He was at the PICU at U of M, yeah, for 3 weeks.
And did he ever regain consciousness as far as you know?
No, he never did regain consciousness.
Never said anything?
No.
I know that his older brother said they found a pulse.
Yes.
And they had him on life support.
Yes.
And they did a CAT scan and all the appropriate tests to see. And then on what date was it that he passed officially?
It was April 4th.
And he was on life support right up until that time. And was that a decision that you had to make alone?
I was there with my mother and my dad and my best friend. And yeah, so I had to make the choice.
And how do you feel about that after the fact?
It was the hardest choice that I would ever have to make.
But you were able to be with him during his final moments?
Yeah.
Can you talk about those last hours or moments?
I mean, it's pretty much extremely hard to talk about, but I don't even know how to describe it. I don't wish it on anyone or my worst enemy. It was horrible. And he was so young, he was only 11. So to see a little child who was so innocent and had the brightest future, have to let him go was horrific. So
how did you say goodbye?
Coming up.
Has she reached out to you in letter or call or come to see you? Has she made any kind of apology or explanation? Closed captioning provided by...
We now return to a Dr. Phil exclusive.
How did you say goodbye?
I hugged him and told him that we would love him and he'll never be forgotten.
Were his brothers allowed in at that point, or did you keep them outside?
No, it just was too traumatic.
I cannot tell you how right a decision that was to not have that etched in their memory.
Yeah.
It's hard to unring that bell, particularly for a young one. Now, his older brother, I understand that he's now staying with your mom.
Yes.
Some. Does he not want to come back in that house?
He refuses to come home. He actually was witness to it, and so he refuses to go to our house. He says that he'll never go there. So yeah, he hasn't been back.
Has she reached out to you in letter or call or come to see you? Has she made any kind of apology or explanation or anything?
No, none whatsoever. I haven't spoken to her at all.
Did she attend the funeral?
No.
Send flowers? Any kind of?
No.
Nothing?
No.
What do you make of that?
I wouldn't have expected her to. I mean, the parents didn't either, none of the family or anything, so.
This happened off of school grounds. Has the school done anything to react to this?
Unfortunately, since the beginning, they really didn't step up to the plate. I think that they didn't know how to handle it, or they didn't want to have to handle it, so they almost didn't even really acknowledge it from the beginning until kind of a lot of parents and community got in an uproar and said, you need to do something, and the children were like fighting at the school. I mean, the kids were all emotional and just worked up and upset, and so people were like pulling their kids out of school. So I think finally they acknowledged it.
Up until now, has this girl received any kind of punishment?
Coming up.
You can't play with people's emotions or feelings that way.
If you had one thing to say to this girl, what would it be?
We now return to a Dr. Phil exclusive.
Before we get back to our interview, there are a lot of myths about suicide, and I think it's really important to clear them up because misunderstanding can result in dire consequences. Now, some of the most common myths are, it can't happen to my teenage child. Now, parents, let me tell you, this doesn't just happen to people that you read about in the paper. It can happen in your home. Another one is suicides come out of the blue with little or no warning. That's typically not the case, and unfortunately, you only see those dots after the fact. What I want you to do is be sensitized to the things that might lead up to this ahead of time. Pay attention to changes in mood. Is your child withdrawing? And look for the things that might suggest that your child is in danger. And here's one that people don't often look for, and that is your child has been very depressed, and then all of a sudden they're inexplicably happy. You think, wow, we're out of the woods. Sometimes that can mean just the opposite. They have decided to take their own lives, and they now are short-termers. They figure, I don't have to suffer this much longer, and they have a lifting of mood. So if you see a big swing in mood, pay attention, because it can mean something is on the horizon that you don't want to see. And lastly, everyone who attempts suicide intends to die. That's not true. So many, particularly young people, don't understand how quickly drugs act, how drugs interact with alcohol. Sometimes they just don't know how to predict the lethal aspect of what they're dealing with. Now again, these are myths, and they'll be on the Dr. Phil website, and I hope you'll take a look at them, because they can be flipped into a list of red flags for you to watch for. Now, getting back to our interview, Tyson's mother, Katrina, is still reeling from the shock of Tyson's death. I asked her what she has to say to the girl who pulled this alleged prank that may have led to his tragic decision. Up until now, has this girl received any kind of punishment?
No.
Is she going to school?
She's been going to school since day one, yep.
You had one thing to say to this girl, what would it be?
I think I would just say, why did you do this? What was your reason? How could you do it to such a fabulous little boy?
You're here for a purpose. Tell me about that.
My main purpose at this point is to advocate for future possible victims of social media pranking and bullying, just to try to make sure that it doesn't occur again. I really would like to have laws put forth that are stricter in that regard, and I don't think they even have anything established yet, and I really think it needs to be addressed. It's a huge issue.
Well, let me pledge to you to help you with that. I have been invited to Capitol Hill and given testimony there in the past on bullying and cyberbullying. We're dealing with the wild, wild web, and the gunslingers are keyboard bullies. With Facebook, email, chat rooms, there are so many of these things with so much power that they constitute weapons of mass destruction when it comes to communication with these kids. In my testimony on the Hill, I referred to them as keyboard bullies, because they have the anonymity of not having to look somebody in the eye, and so they can say more and more outrageous things. I know you're wanting to have some legislation considered here, and I'm going to be speaking about this again, and when I do, I'm going to invite you to go to Washington, D.C. with me and speak about this, because this wonderful, wonderful young man's life cannot be lost for no good. We have to create value here. You know, we have to create meaning to this in some way, and if it can save other kids down the road, then does that make it okay? No. Does that ease your pain, your suffering? No. But does it at least memorialize his loss in some meaningful way? Then yes, besides America moving on to the next headline. What would your message be to all the kids out there that are on these social platforms?
That even if you're not speaking in person, your words can really hurt someone severely. It's just, texting is just like conversing in person. You have to be aware of what you're saying, and you can't treat people that way.
When we come back, find out what has happened with the young girl on the other side of this tragedy. Closed captioning provided by...
It's been just more than a month since Tyson Benz of Marquette tried to take his own life. Tonight, the Marquette County prosecuting attorney is now waiting for the green light from a juvenile court judge to approve charges against a 13-year-old girl. She was involved in the social media prank that led to the 11-year-old boy's eventual death. The girl who allegedly pranked him has been charged with malicious use of a telecommunication device and using a computer to commit a crime. Prosecuting attorney Matt Weesey says this case could go a couple of ways, including a full trial or treatment for the juvenile charged.
Listen, if there's anything we can do to help your boys or yourself through this grief process, just know that we're ready to arrange that on a local basis. Everybody grieves differently, and be patient with your oldest son. The best way to get Monday to turn into Tuesday and Tuesday to turn into Wednesday is to give ourselves something to do. And your something to do is you have 2 boys to raise. We've got to find something for your boys to do, something for your son to do to honor Tyson, something for him to do where he doesn't feel so helpless.
Yeah.
And that's why I say I'd like to get some help, and maybe we can work on that.
Thank you.
How would you like Tyson to be remembered?
I want everybody that knows him to remember him just as he was. He was extremely active. He was a fabulous skier, a wonderful friend. He loved,
Absolutely adored his friends. And he just was the kindest person. So I just want to make sure nobody forgets him and just keeps him in their heart.
Thank you for sharing this so much. Your courage is inspiring.
Thank you.
And Robin made me promise to tell you that you're in her heart, mind, and on her prayer list.
Oh, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks.
I can't tell you how many stories I have worked on where bullying has ended in tragedy. Let's use this tragic story as a starting point to talk to our children and remind them that words are powerful and they should be used carefully and with kindness. Now, at the beginning of this broadcast, I referenced 13 Reasons Why, and in fairness, I want to say that I haven't seen this series, so nothing I'm about to say is a criticism of or not this particular show. But I do want to tell you that there are certain guidelines to follow if you make a decision to report on a story about suicide. And no outlet, including this one, is perfect. But according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and other sources, the guidelines include such things as, obviously, don't sensationalize the act with your headlines. Don't show photos or videos of the location or the method of death, and you don't want to show funerals or candlelight vigils, which can cause a suicide contagion by young people thinking, wow, I would like to be honored in that fashion. Don't describe suicide as without warning. And you don't want to refer to suicide as successful or a failed attempt, and you don't want to report on it like a crime report. You want to do it as a public health issue. So there are things that we need to be sensitive to, and again, nobody's perfect. The 13-year-old girl in this story has been charged with malicious use of telecommunications service provider and using a computer to commit a crime. Now, they are misdemeanors, punishable by up to 16 months in a juvenile detention center. There are always 2 sides to a story, and we have not heard this young woman's or her family's. So we will continue to follow this case closely and understand that what we have said and what the mother have said are her point of view, and these are allegations. While she has been charged, there has been no conviction here, and as I said, we don't know all the facts. I want to thank Katrina for being here today and bravely sharing her story. We also wish continued healing to Tyson's brothers and the rest of his friends and family. Now, if you or someone you know is having suicidal thoughts, please contact the National Suicide Prevention Hotline on 1-800-273-TALK. And for more information, you can go to drphil.com. I want to make an important point here. This is a safe place to talk about what you're thinking and feeling. So there's no reason to hesitate. Pick up the phone. You can speak anonymously and ask for the help that you need. Thanks for watching.